Starting off this countdown in no particular order, we have Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson's dad, Charles Harrelson, was an American hitman and organized crime figure. Yes, you heard me correctly. Beloved actor Woody Harrelson had a father who was a cold-blooded killer. He was just 7 at the time when his father first went to prison. It's said that he was responsible for the deaths of at least 20 people. In 1979, that is when Charles committed his biggest kill of all time. He took out a federal judge by the name of Judge John H. Wood Jr. He was the first federal judge to be killed in the 20th century. He was paid $250,000 to kill off this judge. It was because a drug dealer was about to be sentenced by this judge, who was known as Maximum John, because he always gave out really harsh punishments to drug dealers. So he got Charles to knock him off for him. But this landed him behind bars and in solitary confinement. He was there until he was 69 when he died from a heart attack. Obviously, Woody does not want to be defined by his father's actions. In our 9th spot, we have Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin is one of the few actors who actually grew up in a cult. He was born into the commune of Children of God, but when he was 4 years old, his parents managed to escape the cult and move. That's actually why they changed their last name to Phoenix, as it symbolizes rebirth, since they were able to leave this cult and start a new life. Unfortunately, he also lost his brother at a young age. In 1993, his brother River Phoenix died from an overdose. Joaquin witnessed this happen, and he was the one that called 911. In our 8th spot today, we have Phil Lewis. Phil Lewis is best known for his role of Mr. Mosby on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and I freaking love that show. Like, it was honestly my childhood. While before his Disney Channel days, he actually killed someone. In December of 1991, Lewis fatally hit a 21-year-old woman. She passed away from her injuries from the hit. It was found that Lewis was driving while intoxicated. His blood alcohol levels were 3 times the legal limit of intoxication. As a result, he was convicted of a DUI as well as manslaughter. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, 2 years probation, and 350 hours of community service. But he managed to only serve 1 year in prison. I guess Disney was able to overlook his past when he auditioned for Mosby on the show. In our 7th spot today, we have Tim Allen. Now, if you look at Tim Allen, you think, aw, he's such a family man. I love Home Improvement and Toy Story. He's a great actor. Wow. Tim Allen actually had quite a dark past before he got into acting. In 1978, Allen was arrested for attempting to traffic more than 650 grams of coke. He was arrested in Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport. Now, he actually would have served a lifetime in prison, but he avoided this by giving police information about other dealers. As a result, his sentence was reduced to 3 to 7 years. He ended up serving 2 years and 4 months in prison and then was granted parole in 1981. I guess that's why they say don't judge a book by its cover, because he looks like a wholesome dad, not a drug trafficker. In our 6th spot, we have Jack Nicholson. In 1974, Time magazine discovered that Jack's sister, June, was actually his mother, not his sister. How wild is that? So June was only 17 when she became pregnant with Jack, and she wasn't married, so her parents agreed to raise the child as their own, with Jane and Lorraine acting like his older sisters. So his parents were actually his grandparents, and his sister Lorraine was his aunt. In regards to his dad, we don't know for sure who is his dad, but some say it was likely June's manager. Other sources claim June really just doesn't know who the father was. By the time Jack found this all out, his mom, June, and his grandma had already passed away. Imagine how that would have changed his life. Like, he was raised on a lie.
Number 5. David Letterman. All celebrities have had their moments on live television, and Madonna has quite a few herself, but this one really takes the cake and deserves a place in her new film. On The Late Show with David Letterman, Madonna made one of the most memorable appearances on a talk show that made television history for how scandalous it was. The pop star came out ready to shock the world, cigar in hand and filter completely gone. David Letterman isn't easily fazed, but in 1994, Madonna managed to make him just the slightest bit uncomfortable. A minute into her appearance on The Late Show, the host began teasing Madonna about her sex life, saying, quote, "Kiss a guy in the audience," and she responded by calling him a sick F, before launching into a 20-minute long rant that was hardly PG. In fact, she said the F word a total of 14 times. And yes, there was even a moment where she told Letterman to smell her underwear. It wasn't until 1996 that she revealed why she behaved that way. Quote, "The way he introduced me was derogatory. So my whole thing was like, okay, if that's how you want to play it, you cannot beat me at this game." Well, it's safe to say that she certainly did. Number 4, the infamous kiss. Anyone who didn't live under a rock Rock knows where they were the night that Madonna shared her infamous onstage kiss with Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera live at the 2003 VMAs. It was perhaps one of the most famous moments of controversy and Madonna's second major unscripted moment at the MTV VMAs. She performed Like a Virgin in front of a wedding chapel on stage, where she then kissed Britney Spears full on the mouth and then Christina Aguilera right after that. The camera then cuts to Justin Timberlake's stern expression, which is hilarious because he was dating Britney at the time. The double kiss made it one of Madonna's most notorious performances of all time, and it's clear that she's been pushing the envelope when it comes to displaying her sexuality. It's just another reason she's been able to maintain her icon status for so long. Interestingly enough, in an interview about the VMAs several years later, she actually said that she wouldn't kiss Britney again. So it begs the question, what really happened between the two of them? Number 3. Sean Penn. The violent nature of Madonna and Sean Penn's relationship was something that has mostly been speculation over the years. They first met on the set of Material Girl in 1985. Both of them had just gotten out of relationships and started off as friends. However, their platonic relationship quickly blossomed into a romantic one, and by August of 1985, the two tied the knot on Madonna's 27th birthday. Their relationship started off good, but things quickly got rocky due to Penn's unpredictable outbursts and temper. The actor was said to have a major jealous streak and would fly into fits of rage whenever he saw what looked like Madonna getting close to other men. Eventually, Madonna decided that she had had enough and she filed for divorce in December of 1987, later withdrawing the papers before filing again in January of 1989. It has been rumored that the singer suffered many years of verbal and physical violence from Penn, and that was the main reason for their divorce. But from what we know, it seems like the relationship was a traumatic one for Madonna, and the truth of it might need to be exposed in her biopic. Number 2. Banned by MTV. The network just couldn't handle Madonna's Justify My Love music video, which included a racy group love scene with her then boyfriend Tony Ward and several other young men and women. But Madonna was not just talented on the microphone, she was also very business savvy, and since MTV banned the video, she went on to release it as a VHS single, which was the first song ever to be released in that format. She knew that people would pay to see something that was too scandalous for mainstream TV, and boy was she right. The video went platinum 4 times over and sold more than 1 million copies. But it wasn't just about making money for her. When asked about the video in an interview on Nightline, she said, quote, "If we're going to have censorship, let's not be hypocrites about it. Let's not have double standards. We already have these videos that display degradation to women and violence that are played 24 hours a day, but yet they don't want a video playing that deals with sex between 2 consenting adults?" That was so well said, it just goes to show you how ahead of her time she really was. And number 1, Tupac Shakur. Not many people know that Madonna and Tupac were in a secret romantic relationship. Yes, that's right, 2 of the biggest names in music history actually had a brief romance going on in the 90s. So we definitely do not think that this could be left out of the Madonna biopic. It all started when their paths crossed in the mid-90s and they were instantly drawn to each other. But the societal constraints of the time made it nearly impossible for them to break through the noise and explore their love for each other. The pop star had been famously tight-lipped about their romance and only confirmed it in March of 2015 that she and the rapper had been an item shortly before his death. But in July of 2017, a letter Tupac wrote to Madonna while at the Clinton Correctional Facility was put on auction and sold for more than $170,000. The letter dated all the way back to 1995 and delves into the factors behind their breakup and Tupac's innermost feelings about her. The whole thing reads like a Romeo and Juliet story in which star-crossed lovers have been torn apart due to political tensions, and not just as a result of their own decisions. Number 10. iCarly's stunt double. If you want to know something that proves the people at Nickelodeon only care about money, I've got a scandal for you that was almost swept under the rug entirely. In 2014, a stunt woman from iCarly claimed that the production ruined her career by recklessly dropping her from far too high above the ground, causing some really gruesome injuries. In a stunt gone wrong, Katina Waters was supposed to be dropped slowly down from the ceiling for an episode of iCarly in 2011. She was supposed to be slowly lowered to the ground while still attached to a wire. Instead, she claims that the person operating the descender machine dropped her without warning and she crashed to the floor. The medical consequences of the incident were pretty horrific. It caused severe injuries to her leg, including fractured bones and torn ligaments. But the long-term effects on her health were even worse for her career. Waters was a highly successful stunt actor who performed in dozens of TV shows and movies, but of course she missed out on a lot of work following the incident. Subsequently, she decided to sue the producer, Schneider's Bakery, plus Nickelodeon and MTV networks for pain, suffering, and loss of earnings. And she made the right decision, as it later emerged that it wasn't the first time something like that had happened on the show. Number 9. The GAC. After seeing countless celebrities being slimed on TV for years, there was an extremely high demand for Nickelodeon to release their iconic gooey green sludge to the public. This led the network to release what they called GAC into toy stores across the country in 1992, much to the delight of 90s kids everywhere. The product wasn't exactly slime that they had on the Nick shows, it was more like a squishy putty that made funny noises when you pressed it between your hands. Kids also loved the name GAC because not only was it onomatopoeia, but it also just sounded like how the product felt. However, the branding turned out to be a highly controversial decision, as the name itself was common street lingo for illicit street substances. In fact, it was literally a term for the substance that goes onto a spoon. The story goes that while someone on the Nick crew was working with the then nameless slime one day, they nicknamed it GAC, which became a naughty inside joke on set because of its meaning. Game show host Mark Summers was in on the joke too, and eventually started saying it live on air, but Nickelodeon's marketing department allegedly had no idea and just cluelessly went along with it. Number 8. The Voice of Dora. The network had a really big mess on their hands when Caitlin Sanchez, the teenager who starred on Dora the Explorer until she reached puberty, alleged that when she made the deal with Nickelodeon to voice the iconic character, she was given just 22 minutes to sign the contract without an experienced lawyer. The young star did so under duress, with the alleged promise that she'd receive residuals for her work, plus money from merchandising. This was in 2007, years before Dora the Explorer was established as an $11 billion global brand. So in 2010, Caitlin sued Nickelodeon and MTV networks for making her sign what she believed was a terrible contract that conned her out of millions, specifically citing unpaid work hours, as well as being paid only $40 for promotional appearances. The legal battle made headlines throughout the world thanks to statements made by Caitlin's attorney that if Nickelodeon refuses to pay up by a certain date, he would expose their humiliating secrets. But the young voice actor ended up settling for $500,000, but then tried to re-sue because she and her family thought that the lawyer acted fraudulently and didn't tell her that most of the settlement would be eaten by taxes and lawyer fees. But to fans, the whole settlement just proved that the network certainly had something to hide. Number 7. Chris Savino. Once it was exposed, the massive scandal that was a PR nightmare for Nickelodeon was akin to the network's own version of Harvey Weinstein. In 2017, Nick was forced to fire one of its most prominent showrunners, Chris Savino, over allegations made by at least a dozen women. Savino, who has been in the business since the early 90s, previously worked on such animated shows as Dexter's Laboratory and the Powerpuff Girls, and was the creator of Nick's second highest rated kids show at the time, Loud House, which centers on a boy's life while dealing with a house full of sisters. According to Cartoon Brew, as many as 12 women came forward to accuse Savino of predatory behavior, including unwanted sexual advances and threats of blacklisting after the relationships with co-workers had ended. What's even more disturbing is that the site said that the reports date back at least a decade. One woman said that she didn't accept an offer to work at Nickelodeon simply because Savino worked there. She alleged that when they both worked for Disney, he sent her explicit text messages and photos, and once offered her a job in exchange for inappropriate things. And Walker Farrell, the director of BoJack Horseman, also came forward with her own Savino horror story from the early 2000s, when both of them worked at Cartoon Network. Just goes to show you how cases involving power and inappropriate behavior infect almost every corner of Hollywood. Number 6. Zoey 101. The show was a boarding school set dramedy that hit Nickelodeon in January of 2005. Starring as protagonist Zoe Brooks, Jamie Lynn Spears was reportedly brought on by its creator Dan Schneider, all because she looked a lot like her older sister and superstar Britney Spears. But little did fans know there was actually a scandal brewing behind the set, as its star was just 16 when she fell pregnant, which would have been a bombshell for the very PG show. In her memoir, Things I Should Have Said, Jamie Lynn Spears confessed that her team decided that her pop star sister should not be told about her pregnancy because it was too risky. Quote, "The entire Spears team was already caught up in my sister's PR difficulties, and everyone around me just wanted to make this issue disappear. From there, her family and management pulled her out of school until they could figure out what to do next, and even took away her phone for fear that the news would get out. As a result, the actress said that even her father stopped talking to her. But once the news was released, Nickelodeon immediately released a statement saying, 'We respect Jamie Lynn's decision to take responsibility in this sensitive and personal situation.' And after wrapping shooting for the 4th season of Zoey 101, the network cancelled the series altogether."
In at number 5 is Matthew Broderick. Matthew Broderick is known largely for his titular role as Ferris Bueller in the John Hughes coming-of-age film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was also in The Producers and a bunch of other A-list movies. What you may not know about him, however, is that he was directly involved and in fact caused the death of numerous people. He and Jennifer Grey, the star of Dirty Dancing, were on a romantic vacation in Ireland when Matthew head-on hit the car of a 28-year-old woman and her mother. Both women were pronounced dead at the hospital. The road was straight and easy to navigate. The issue was that they were in Ireland, and he, out of habit, drove on the wrong side of the road, which led to the crash. Following the accident, Broderick was convicted of careless driving but was only fined $175, which to this day the family of the victims called a quote, "travesty of justice." At number 4 is Jackie Chan. While Jackie Chan appeared as a comedic kung fu fighting man on the screen, his personal life is absolutely insane and surprisingly not well known. In fact, Jackie himself didn't know until well into his career just how many secrets were being kept in his family. He learned in 2003 that he had 2 secret brothers living in China and that his father was a nationalist spy on secret missions to bust substance crime in mainland China. In fact, that's where he met Jackie's mother. In what seems like a moment straight out of a noir crime boss movie, Jackie's father met his mother, Lily Chan, because he was sent to bust her as an infamous dealer and legendary gambler in Shanghai. So, his mother was one of the lords of the Chinese underbelly, and his father was sent to arrest her. The two fled to Australia together, where they lived until their death. Jackie's father also revealed that the actor's real family name isn't Chan at all, but rather Fang. How's that for a family reunion? In at number 3 is Rose McGowan. Rose was one of the founding spokespersons in the Me Too movement, joining dozens of women who brought Harvey Weinstein to justice. She is best known for her 90s movies like Jawbreaker, Scream, and Encino Man. But what you may not know about her is her rather horrifying upbringing. She was born in Florence, Italy, where her parents lived in a commune called the Children of God. Basically, she was born into a cult that had mass allegations of horrifying crimes against humanity. I can't really say what they are because of YouTube restrictions, but if you're curious, I suggest you look into it with a serious content warning in mind. The cult in question lured people in with promises of all kinds of physical intimacy and activities with extremely young women set to perform such acts on the men in the cult. Luckily for Rose, she was largely protected from the more heinous side of the cult, and she and her family fled when she was 14 years old, where quote, "We hid in an old stone house and had to boil pots of water to take baths. The cult sent people to find us. I remember a man trying to break in with a hammer." Number 2 on the list, Rihanna. While the celebrity singer is in the news lately for her exciting pregnancy with A$AP Rocky, what you may not know about her is her rather insane early life, and the secrets that they kept even from her until they were finally brought to light. Old family photos were unearthed that reveal a secret side of the family that Rihanna herself rarely ever talks about: her father's other kids. Rihanna has 3 older siblings through her father by 3 different women, as he admitted to being quite the womanizer in his heyday. Her and her father have an extremely complicated relationship, as he has dealt with substance use issues for most of his life. And now to find out that she had 3 other siblings she knew nothing about, it's a wonder the two have stuck together through so much. And in at number 1 is Mark Wahlberg. The actor and singer needs no introduction, but he may need a little disclaimer beside his name for the rather horrifying incident he caused in the 80s. When he was 16 years old, Mark had an extremely harsh life, and he ended up brutally harming an elderly Vietnamese man in a racially motivated attack. He shouted slurs at him while physically harming him so badly that Mark was charged with attempted murder. While he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, for some reason he only served 45 days. In a beautiful show of faith, his victim, whose name is Johnny Trin, stated that he forgives Mark. Quote, "Everyone deserves another chance. He was young and reckless, but I forgive him now. He paid for his crime when he went to prison." Mark got a pardon from the court, basically exonerating him from his crime, an action that he later stated he regrets. Quote, "I didn't need that.
I spent 28 years righting the wrong. I was relieved to find out that the injuries to his eye had occurred in the early 70s and not from the incident that happened that night, but I was able to meet with him and his wife and his daughter and apologize for these horrific acts. Some good can come out of it.
Singer Billie Eilish is rarely in the news for anything negative. Though she is a world-famous Grammy-winning artist, she seems to mostly keep to herself and her fans, as she isn't normally a name you would hear in relation to any scandals. Well, things change, and now the 19-year-old is dealing with a massive loss in followers on Instagram that happened within 24 hours. Billie's follower count dropped by 100,000 very quickly, and all because of an Instagram challenge that's been going around recently. The post a picture of challenge, as it seems to be called, is a trend that calls on the user to post a question on their story, asking their followers to request to see specific photos from that user's camera roll. Stars like Sophie Turner, Cara Delevingne, and Kylie Jenner have participated in the challenge, so fans requested that Billie join in on the trend. Before I continue on, please consider leaving a like on this video to help support the channel. So as Billie began sharing posts requested by her fans, one of them asked the singer to show them a picture of her lock screen. Basically, they just wanted to know what Billie's lock screen wallpaper looked like, which to me is a very good request. Not a lot of people would think to ask that, but this is one of the questions that ended up getting Billie in trouble. The picture she posted of her lock screen featured a painting of two nude women in a green hue. The image is really quite beautiful and is very well painted, and it also matches Billie's signature green hair. The painting was done by David Chaffetz and features two models in the image. Another one of the requests that caused Billie's follower count to dip was when a fan asked to see a drawing that Billie was most proud of. The image she posted to show off her proudest artistic works was a series of sketches that portrayed snakes as well as the female anatomy. Breasts and booties were on display, and again, it was kind of beautiful. I honestly didn't know that Billie was such a visual artist like that, but I'm glad I know now because she is very, very talented. Now, a lot of people liked the things that she posted. They were artistic, playful, and pretty, but apparently a lot of people were also displeased with the portrayal of breasts on her Instagram stories. As a result, Billie's follower count dropped dramatically, going from 73 million to 72.9 million. I mean, it's nowhere near the amount that Charli D'Amelio lost on TikTok a few weeks ago, but 100,000 is still a hefty number. One fan pointed out the drastic change, posting a side-by-side comparison of her follower count with the caption, "Bye, not her losing 100k because of boobs." Eventually, this got around to Billie, who posted that photo on her Instagram story, captioning it with, quote, "LMFAO, y'all babies, SMH." For most celebrities, they would take down whatever post upset her fans and caused so much damage to their follower account, but Billie didn't really seem fazed by the whole thing, and she kept the post up after calling those who unfollowed babies. There really wasn't anything offensive about showing some artwork that you like or that you made, so Billie's response pretty much captured how petty this scandal seemed to be. Billie has always been very outspoken about body positivity and is an advocate for not allowing people to have an opinion on someone else's body. Billie is known for wearing baggy clothing in order to prevent people from commenting on her body, but not too long ago, a photo of the singer in the tank top went viral, causing Billie to open up about her relationship with her body and the media. The fact that these fans took offense to these posts sort of goes against what Billie advocates for, so maybe it's a good thing that this negativity has left her social media. We should all be able to celebrate ourselves and our bodies no matter who you are or what you look like, right? It is all art. The rest of the fans who didn't unfollow after seeing Billie's posts were seemingly taken aback by the negative response Billie was getting. One fan said, quote, "They said you lost fans on Instagram because of some boobs. Perhaps those fans are being magically replaced with fans that do. I love them and mine too. I'm a fan now because of some nice drawings," end quote. This story does end on a positive note, as she has since regained the 100,000 followers that she had lost, and though these followers may not be the ones who left originally, maybe that one fan is right in thinking that they've been replaced with fans who support her posts and her art.
Coming in at number 10, Peter Pan. Peter Pan is a wistful film about never growing up, but instead remaining young in Neverland amongst the Lost Boys and Captain Hook. Well, let me ruin that for you. Peter Pan kidnaps children. Yeah, I went there. This theory goes that Peter Pan is actually a deranged psychopath who kidnaps lost boys and kills them before they can grow up, because as we know, no one can be old in Neverland. To make things even crazier, the theory continues by saying that Hook is actually a lost boy who managed to escape from Peter's grasps, and that is why he is hellbent on killing him. Whoa. Coming in at number 9, Kristoff. Now this one is just dark. As we know in Frozen, Kristoff has a loyal reindeer friend named Sven. They shared an adorable relationship and we root for them throughout. So what is the theory? Well, the theory goes that Kristoff is wearing the skinned pelt of Sven's mother. Yep. I told you this theory was dark. As we know, Kristoff and Sven grew up together, and Kristoff wears a coat made out of reindeer fur. Sven could smell his mum on Kristoff, or weirder still, Sven thinks Kristoff is his mum. Weird. In at number 8, Aladdin. Now, it is widely acknowledged that Aladdin takes place thousands of years ago, yet some fans aren't too sure about that. One theory goes that the film is actually set in the future. The evidence? Well, in one scene, the genie states, 10,000 years will not give you such a crick in the neck. Not only that, but how is it that the genie knows modern day references such as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Goofy? Makes far more sense for the film to actually occur 10,000 years in the future, where no one would ever think twice about seeing a flying rug. Just saying. In at number 7, Ariel's mum. Ariel's mum was murdered by Captain Hook. Say it ain't so. If you've ever watched Peter Pan, you might have noticed the mermaid swimming around Neverland. Now, many have pointed out that one looks a whole lot like the Little Mermaid's Ariel. While some have said it could perhaps be the princess herself, others have theorized that there is a far more logical conclusion. It is in fact Ariel's mother. In the director video, Ariel's Beginning, we learn that her mother was killed by pirates. And we know from Peter Pan, Captain Hook and the mermaids kinda hate each other. So could it be that Hook slayed Ariel's mother? Certainly makes a lot of sense. Coming in at 6, Cars. So this is quite a famous theory at this point. This one claims that all Pixar films take place in the same universe, specifically that Cars exists in a post-apocalyptic world. It is theorized that people made a fateful mistake of providing vehicles to AI, and a hostile takeover ensued. Humankind was then killed off, with the rest of the survivors fleeing the planet, thus paving the way for WALL-E. With the absence of humans, Cars took over, adopting human personalities and resulting in the film that we see today. What do you guys think though?
Next on the list is Kevin Spacey, and not for what you might think, because really nothing can keep what he did a secret, and his attempts at hiding it are abysmal at best. But what you may not know is that there are more than a few skeletons in his closet, and he's got one secret that I actually didn't know. Kevin's left-leaning political views are very well known, so it may come as a surprise that his father was vehemently racist and believed that white people were a superior race. Kevin refuses to talk about his father, but his siblings have opened up a handful of times about their traumatic childhood, often describing their father as an evil monster. Apparently, their father would also continually his kids while they were growing up, and it got so bad that Kevin's brother Randy almost took the life of his father while the young boy was hiding in a closet, but he never opened the door. Although Kevin is a reprehensible human being, no boy deserves to grow up in such a horrifying environment. Next up is a K-pop idol whose secret is definitely out of the bag at this point. We all know just how strict and borderline harmful the K-pop industry is towards its stars, often restricting diets to near starvation in an attempt to get their already lean singers to lose weight, alongside 12 to 20 hours a day of dance practice. But one K-pop idol from the band Bang Bang has some dark underground secrets that only recently came to light. Seungri was sentenced last year to 3 years in prison for the crime of running an underground nightclub that bet heavily on foreign casinos where gambling is illegal. He was also charged with providing women to business executives for, services. Apparently, he's been doing this for years, and we only recently found out during a Korean military bust. Now it seems like sadly his K-pop days are over as he spends the next 3 years behind bars. Next up is Hollywood actor Casey Affleck. I'm surprised we haven't done this one yet, honestly. Known for movies like Manchester by the Sea and Gone Baby Gone, Affleck is a critic's best friend. But he's not everyone's best friend. In fact, Casey has been accused by multiple women of committing horrifying acts against them. Some say that he snuck into their bedrooms, others that when they refused his advances, he sent them violent and aggressive texts. Other women have said that he ordered a crew member to expose himself to this one woman. All of these allegations were attempted to be taken to court to be filed as multi-million-dollar lawsuits, but they were both settled for unknown amounts. Thanks to these settlements, we may never know if these accusations are true or not, but it seems really odd that not many people are talking about it these days. In fact, when asked about it, Casey brushes it off as hearsay, and his dark past seems to be fading into secrecy once again. Second to first on our list is Oprah Winfrey. The talk show host who revolutionized the game, Oprah's name is synonymous with the monolithic empire she's built surrounding her image. She's known for her lovable, relatable, and welcoming personality. But her humble beginnings make her rise to fame all the more deserved.
In fact, Oprah was born in Mississippi to a single teenager mom, and she grew up in extreme poverty. During her childhood, the cost of raising a baby became too much for the young mother, so she sent Oprah to go live with her father, or at least one of the men who she thinks might have been her father. During her time with her dad, Oprah's mom gave birth to 2 more babies, one of which was given up for adoption. The real kicker here is that Oprah only found out about her sister Patricia in 2010. While a gut reaction to this news may be to cast harsh judgment on Oprah's mother, it is important to remember that it is impossible to know what it is like unless you have been in her position. For those who have been, we think you understand the brevity of her decision. Last up is Nicolas Cage. Now, I guess it's not exactly a dark secret here, and I may be cheating a little bit, but I only just found this out when I was writing the script, and wow, wild. Anyways, Nicolas Cage is known for his fun and sometimes extremely cheesy acting in movies like Face Off and Ghost Rider. But what you may not know is that Nicolas Cage isn't even his real name. In fact, Cage's birth name is Nicholas Kim Coppola, and his uncle is the famed director Francis Ford Coppola. The name change resulted from his wish not to cash in on the fame associated with the Coppola name in Hollywood, though the actor did end up appearing in several of Francis's films. It is quite believable when thinking about it for a few seconds, as both talents are just as eccentric as the other. The principal difference is that Francis Ford Coppola's odd ideals gave the world masterpieces like The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, while Cage gifts audiences with wild overacting and melodrama.
Number 10. Guy Ritchie. Film director and Madonna's second ex-husband, Guy Ritchie, is a prominent relationship that she had throughout her career. The two met in the late 90s and they hit it off right away. The pair had a child in August of 2000 and were married not long after. He even ended up directing the music video that was so scandalous it was banned from MTV and VH1. The violent video, What It Feels Like for a Girl, featured shots of Madonna driving recklessly, robbing a guy at an ATM, and squirting police officers with a water gun. But things did not end well for the couple as they ultimately got divorced in 2008, and soon as it was publicly confirmed, the British tabloids had a field day when it came to pointing fingers about what went wrong in their relationship. There were rumors of Madonna having an affair with baseball star Alex Rodriguez, and the couple fought over adopting their son David from Malawi in 2006. And after that, the pop star was thrown from a horse on her 47th birthday, and she broke several bones. Guy basically abandoned her. Number 9. Puerto Rico. In 1993, Madonna was set to arrive in San Juan for a concert as a part of her girly show tour, but certain groups on the island were worried about Madonna's influence over the youth and demanded that the concert be cancelled. Even the Puerto Rican government agreed that the singer was a bad influence on the kids, but the concert went ahead. For all the controversy, the tickets sold out instantly, but on the evening of the concert, several religious groups started protesting by singing hymns around the fans. So how did Madonna respond? Well, in a show of defiance, she rubbed the Puerto Rican flag on her crotch, further outraging the government and the protesters. This incident really played into her image because at the time, the more dangerous she was, the more people were interested in her. Everything she did had repercussions. Still, the whole incident was very scandalous, so her new biopic will probably touch on everything that went down in Puerto Rico. Number 8. Condemned by the Pope. Madonna's 1989 video for Like a Prayer, which featured her dancing in front of burning crosses and doing a bunch of other things that were thought of as too risky for its time. The song was initially used in a differently themed Pepsi ad starring Madonna, and she got $5 million for the planned endorsement deal. But after the video garnered controversy, including condemnation from the Vatican, Pepsi cancelled its contract with the singer. Religious groups called for boycott of the song, and even Pope John Paul II spoke out against it. Quote, "The video is blasphemy and insult because it shows immorals inside a church. This would mark the start of Madonna's lifelong fight with the Vatican and her complicated relationship with Catholicism, which was only just beginning." But the way she responded to all this is what made her a true icon. She actually walked the red carpet the next day in a bright red dress carrying a Coke can, and Pepsi still let her keep that initial $5 million that she was going to be paid for the commercial. There's probably so much that went on behind the scenes of this stunt that we really really need to find out. Number 7. Michael Jackson. Seeing the two massive icons in pictures together seems like a fever dream sometimes. Jackson and Madonna were reportedly briefly an item in the early 90s, and the Queen of Pop once revealed that she had the best date ever with Jackson. The entertainment industry is really quick to assume relationships between the world's biggest stars when they are seen together, but Madonna actually confirmed the two were a real item in a 1991 interview. She asked him if he would like to be her date to the Oscars, and he accepted. She followed it up by saying, quote, "And then, yes, he took me home. You wanna know what happened after that? I'm not gonna tell you." During a 2016 interview with James Corden on his carpool karaoke, Madonna revealed that she did enjoy a fling with Michael, but he was shy when they kissed, and she had to loosen him up with a glass of Chardonnay. But what happened during their tryst is something that she has avoided talking about for a really long time, so it's a very real possibility that she's finally ready to uncover exactly what happened between them. Number 6. Banned from the theater. This controversy is definitely one of the more recent ones that Madonna has been involved in, but it is nevertheless something that she might like to address in her biopic. She allegedly texted on her BlackBerry for the duration of a 2013 screening of 12 Years a Slave, resulting in her being banned from the Alamo Drafthouse theater chain. To make matters worse, when an audience member called her out on her behavior, she reportedly screamed, "It's for business," and called them an enslaver. Then in 2015, after she was caught texting from the front row of a performance of Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda personally banned Madonna from all future performances. Jonathan Groff, who played King George in the original run, spoke to Vulture about the incident. Quote, "That bee was on her phone. You couldn't miss it from the stage. It was a black void of the audience in front of us, and her face was there perfectly lit by the light of her iPhone through 3/4 of the show. You can't make this stuff up, it's just too bizarre." I mean, she's a queen, but she's always been really problematic.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Sean Penn. A number of women have come forward saying that Sean Penn has been aggressive towards them. In fact, he has mistreated a number of his partners, including Madonna. They were married from 1985 to 1989. While in December of 1988, Penn allegedly tied Madonna to a chair and held her hostage for 9 hours and apparently hit her multiple times. When he untied her to let her use the bathroom, she fled to the police station. One officer said, and I quote, "Madonna staggered into the station. She was distraught, crying, with makeup smeared all over her face. I hardly recognized her. She had obviously been struck." Sean was charged with inflicting corporal injury and traumatic conditions on Madonna, as well as battery. But Madonna withdrew her complaint a week later and has rarely commented on it since, which is quite odd. Why would she say that he harmed her and then retract the statement? So who knows what really happened. Moving on to number 4, we have Leighton Meester. Now, I personally did not know this, but Blair Waldorf, aka Leighton Meester, wasn't always the queen bee of Manhattan. In fact, she was born in prison. Basically, her mom was serving a sentence after smuggling a lot of marijuana out of Jamaica with the help of Leighton's dad and Aunt Judy. All of them ended up behind bars. In fact, her aunt managed to escape prison and became America's first woman on the US Marshals 15 Most Wanted list. How insane is that? In the end, Leighton's grandmother raised her while her mom served 16 months in prison. Thank gosh she didn't follow in her family's footsteps. In our 3rd spot, we have Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken was involved in a death that is just shrouded in mystery. On November 29th, 1981, 43-year-old actress Natalie Wood was found dead, floating face down in the Pacific Ocean. She was on a yacht with her husband Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken when this happened. The thing is, no one really knows what happened to her. Some say she slipped off the deck and fell into the water, while others are convinced that her husband or Christopher Walken had something to do with it, or that they know what happened. One theory is that Natalie and Christopher were having an affair, Wagner found out about it, got mad, and pushed her off the yacht. Now, Wagner seems to be the prime suspect, but many people think that Walken knows exactly what happened. I mean, he barely even talks about the case, and on the rare occasion that he did, he would call it an accident, and also he was absent from the documentary about her. All I'm gonna say is someone knows something. I'm getting the vibe that Walken knows what happened and maybe he just feels guilty about it. In our 2nd spot, we have Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron actually had a very traumatic upbringing. Her dad struggled with alcohol addiction and would constantly threaten Charlize and her mom, Gerda. He would never physically hurt her, but he would hurt Gerda. One night in June of 1991, he got angry and fired shots at both of them. During that altercation, Gerda ran and grabbed her own handgun that she had kept hidden and shot him back. Her shots killed him while Charlize watched it all unravel. In the end, it was declared self-defense and Gerda never faced any charges. But think how traumatizing that must have been for her to see her mother shoot and kill her dad as a teenager. And in our #1 spot today we have Ashton Kutcher. Now I never knew this and I was incredibly shocked when I found out about it. But on February 21st of 2001, Ashton Kutcher went over to his then girlfriend's house, Ashley Ellerin. The two had planned on going to a post-Grammy party, but when he knocked on the door, there was no answer. That's because Ashley was dead on the floor of her home. She had been stabbed 47 times by a man named the Hollywood Ripper. He was responsible for the death of up to 10 women. As a result, Ashton Kutcher lost his girlfriend very suddenly and in a very traumatic way. He was also scared that he was going to be a suspect in the murder investigation since his fingerprints were on her door, but he never was, but he did have to testify in court.
The 16-year-old was facing death threats this past week after people started making claims she was ungrateful for her platform and called her a spoiled brat. This all came after a video from her family's YouTube channel went viral, showing her making comments that people thought were disrespectful. She lost 1 million followers in one day after posting the first episode to a series called Dinner with the D'Amelios to their YouTube channel. The series showed her eating with her sister Dixie, their parents, and a surprise guest. In this video, the surprise guest happened to be Charlie's friend, James Charles. In the video, they sit down and have dinner with a private chef, Erin May, who prepared dinner for them. The world was furious with Dixie D'Amelio because she tried one of the snails and then she walked away from the table and gagged and puked, and people thought it was disrespectful to the chef. Why the world was mad at Charlie was because at one point she asked if they could eat dino nuggets instead, and also said that she wanted to hit 100 million subscribers within the year. People began calling her disrespectful and ungrateful for the 99.8 million she already had at the time. Now this was all blown way out of proportion and everyone started unfollowing Charlie and even sent her death threats. She did a live stream for her followers where she apologized if she hurt anyone and made it clear that she truly does appreciate her platform and all the opportunities that come with it. She even started crying in her video and said she was considering leaving TikTok because she could not handle all the death threats and hate that she was receiving. It didn't help that other celebrities got involved, and by that I mean Trisha Paytas. It wasn't really surprising to see the 32-year-old get involved in drama that did not involve her, but she posted a series of TikTok videos where she called out Charlie and said she is a brat and is not setting a good example for her millions of followers.
I'm not worried about you. I'm commentating on poor behavior because that's the only way you're going to be able to grow and change.
This series of videos lasted for days, with her going back and forth with other followers and celebrities who had opinions on the subject. Charlie responded to Trisha's first video and said she's just trying to get clout and told her to stop talking about her. So you best believe Trisha didn't like being called out by a 16-year-old. If you missed all of this chaos that went down on social media over the past few days, then consider yourself lucky because it's literally all I saw. It was flooding my TikTok. But the controversy did not stop there. Because everyone was so angry with Charlie, people started sharing trimmed down video clips of Charlie appearing to be ungrateful, and that is why her following count dropped by 1 million in just a day. So is there really a dark truth behind her actions? That is up to you to decide. A lot of people started coming around and remembered that she's just 16 years old with millions of people watching her every move, expecting her to act a certain way. And videos that are edited could always be interpreted wrong, which just causes more issues. People also began to realize that Trisha Paytas is 32 years old and is slamming a 16-year-old publicly. Since when is it appropriate for adults to bully teens online and keep their platform? The D'Amelio sisters did explain that Chef Erin May, from their video, is a family friend and he purposely gave Dixie the snail to try so that she would throw up. Apparently she's really sensitive to food and the crew thought it'd be funny to film her reaction when she tried it. Erin May was not offended by it and he made that publicly known. Could they have said things differently? Sure, but we also got an edited version of the video where things can get taken out of context all the time. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think this 16-year-old TikTok star has some dark truths behind her sweetheart personality? I personally think she's just a sweet kid doing the best she can with the amount of fame that she was given very quickly. She's been on TikTok in I think for around a year or so, and it has got to 100 million. I can't even fathom those numbers, so I give her credit for sticking in there.
Starting off this countdown in no particular order, we've got Jon Hamm. Jon Hamm is most notably famous for his role in the hit television series Mad Men as a cutthroat advertising executive. What he may not want you to know about him, however, were his less than savory college days that landed him in some serious trouble. In 1990, Jon was arrested for his alleged role in a fraternity hazing that turned horribly violent. His fraternity house was even dissolved after Hamm and his friends harmed a pledge so violently that he was in the hospital, even going as far as to light him on fire. Jon was charged with a misdemeanor offense, and when he was asked about it in 2018, his response wasn't the best. Quote, "I was essentially acquitted. I wasn't convicted of anything. I was caught up in a big situation, a stupid kid in a stupid situation, and it was a bummer. I moved on from it." Okay, now we're moving on, I guess. And at number 9 is Richard Pryor, the iconic comedian who is often cited as direct inspiration for other comedy legends like Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle. Pryor changed the game. But what you may not know is that there was an extremely dark past behind the All Smiles comic. Richard grew up in an extremely unstable childhood, raised by a substance-using mother in a brothel in Illinois. Richard saw things that no child should ever have to see, and to cope with such a horrifying childhood, he also turned to substance use to self-medicate. Richard was married 7 times to 5 different women who had trouble with the comic's insatiable personal life. He even almost passed away at his own hand when he doused himself in rum and lit himself on fire while using substances. Pryor's friend even stated in an interview, quote, "He has about 13 personalities, and while you could deal with 9 of them, the other 4 are a nightmare." At number 8 is Billy Tipton. Billy Tipton, if you haven't heard of him, was a revered jazz musician who rose to fame in the 1940s and 1950s. He lived his life in relative normalcy outside of his celebrity status. Although he was never married, he did have 5 serious girlfriends, all of whom referred to themselves as Miss Tipton. Eventually, he settled down with a woman named Kelly, and they adopted 3 sons together. It wasn't until his death from a stomach ulcer in 1989 that, as he was being rushed to the hospital, his giant secret was uncovered. Billy Tipton was born a woman and had concealed his sex throughout his entire life, even from his relationships. The revelation came as, quote, "a shock to nearly everyone, including the women who had considered themselves his wives, as well as his sons and the musicians who traveled with him." To explain away any intimacy that would have happened between his partners, Billy reportedly said that he was in a serious car accident that mutilated his body, leaving him unable to perform. At the time this was revealed, it sent shockwaves through the music scene where trans performers were basically completely unheard of. And at number 7 is Prince. The iconic pop singer is considered one of the greatest musicians to have ever lived, but he also had a secret that was only uncovered upon his tragic and sudden death in 2016. After he passed, many stories started to come to light as both bank statements became public and from various sources. These bank statements revealed that Prince had been secretly donating insane sums of money to various charities throughout his life, each with the condition that the donation be private and that the donor be kept a secret. A few organizations that he did support in the days before his death were the Harlem Children's Zone and Uptown Dance Academy, New York. He even donated $12,000 to the Louisville Free Public Library in order to keep it from closing, all under the condition that they keep his name unlisted from donor records. He reportedly gave thousands away at a time, particularly to charities related to children, as his own child tragically passed away after only 6 days of life. He also focused on environmental issues, and uniquely, unlike a lot of celebrities who choose to invest so they get a financial return, Prince just donated to foundations that support environmental causes and a transition to solar power. Number 6, Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page is the virtuoso guitarist and founder of Led Zeppelin. Jimmy is largely known as one of the greatest guitarists in the history of rock music. I mean, he set the standard for the many who have imitated his electric style. Yet, what he may not want you to know about him is his predatory relationship with a young girl who was only 14 at the time. While he toured with Led Zeppelin, Jimmy dated Lori Maddox, although they kept their relationship extremely private and basically hidden because it was, you know, illegal and creepy. Even in the loose 70s, this relationship could have put Page in jail. They dated for a little while, and who knows what they did behind the scenes, but Jimmy eventually dumped dumped her for BB Bell, who was of age at the time, thank God. Either way, not a fan of this one.
Number 5. Jason Biggs. In the early seasons of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Nickelodeon, Jason Biggs could be heard voicing lead turtle Leonardo, but scandal quickly erupted at the network when it was revealed that his social media activity was offensive enough that there were many calls to Nickelodeon to protest his involvement with the show. So in 2014, after only 2 seasons, he was ultimately replaced by Seth Green on the popular series, and for a good reason. Jason's Twitter in the 2010s was a PR nightmare. In fact, there didn't seem to be any topic too controversial for him to joke about, like a Bachelorette contestant who died, a plane crash, the Pope, women's basketball, and sexually explicit comments about the politician Paul Ryan's wife. But the jokes backfired big time when the official Ninja Turtles Twitter account gave a shout out to Jason's personal account and encouraged their followers to check it out. It's safe to say that the kid-friendly and PG network is not pleased with the immense backlash that they started receiving from parenting groups and conservative bloggers, eventually leading them to release a statement apologizing, while Fox News host Megyn Kelly called the American Pie actor a disgusting pig and called for him to be fired. Ultimately, the network responded to the pressure and gave Jason the boot. Number 4. Angelique Bates. The actress who was one of the original cast members on Nick's sketch comedy show All That exposed the reality behind the cameras when she spoke to the Shade Room in 2016. Angelique explained some of the horror she endured, such as physical, emotional, and mental mistreatment from her mother in front of producers who not only turned the other cheek, but strongly urged her to just accept the violence and remain silent. She said that she was only 12 years old when the nightmare began, and that the producers and cast members could hear her yelling, but nothing was done to help her. According to Angelique, Child Protective Services did eventually show up in 1996, but she said that the adults on set pressured her to stay silent. Possibly in an attempt to muddy the waters or save her own skin, Angelique's mother, Dee Bates, came forward in support of her daughter, although she tried to shift the blame onto the network. Whatever the case with her mother's questionable side of the story, the former child star also explained that she was pretty much released from her contract at age 15 and claimed that she was blackballed by the entertainment industry as a result. But to this day, Nickelodeon have never come forward with an official response to the accusations. Number 3. Victorious. Canadian actor Evan Jogia had his breakthrough role playing Beck Oliver in Victorious, but after Jeanette McCurdy's bombshell allegations regarding Dan Schneider, fans really started to question whether or not he had the same experience. In a recent TikTok video, Evan admitted that he did not actually remember filming the series at all, because he was blackout drunk almost every night. Quote, "When you don't remember a single plotline to a single Victorious episode, but you do remember going out partying every night." When one fan added that the show seemed like a fever dream to her, Evan just said, "Me too, and I was there." And when another fan asked, "So Beck was hungover all the time?" he just said yes. This admission was significant because in Jeanette's new memoir, she talks about the creator pressuring her to drink while she was underage, allegedly saying, quote, "The Victorious kids get drunk all the time. The iCarly kids are so wholesome. We need to give you guys a little edge." Sometime later, she claims that Schneider got into trouble with Nickelodeon for inappropriate behavior with the young cast and was not allowed to be near the actors anymore, meaning that he had to direct them from a separate control room. So it's entirely possible that he was creeping on more than just one actor. Number 2. Jeanette McCurdy. The iCarly star recently released her new memoir, which has been described as both heartbreaking and hilarious. The blunt title, "I'm Glad My Mom Died," shocked fans upon its release, because it reveals what really went on behind the cameras, something that up until now fans have only been able to really speculate about. Jeanette exposed her traumatic experiences on Nick, and the disturbing truth about how she was mistreated by her mother, who pushed her to be a child star, noting that her own persona that she was known for throughout her youth and her young adult life was all a front forced upon her by her mom, who in addition to everything else was extremely physically inappropriate with her. Jeanette also discusses the perils of young fame and reveals that she developed an eating disorder as a child, and talks about why she ultimately quit acting altogether. She also goes into great detail of numerous instances where she felt exploited as an actor, both on and off set. Describing the creator as mean-spirited, controlling, and terrifying, the former Nick star recalled a time when she was filming an episode of iCarly that he insisted that that she wear a bikini instead of a one-piece swimsuit, which she was much more comfortable with. Number 1. Drake and Josh. This show was one of the most popular shows on Nickelodeon in the early 2000s. Starring Drake Bell and Josh Peck, the sitcom was one of the network's most successful projects from that time. So when the truth finally came out, fans were understandably left disillusioned and upset. Nobody knew that behind the scenes, Josh heavily struggled with addiction. Looking to feel better about himself, the actor explained in an interview that he lost 127 pounds in an 18-month time span while filming the show. But when that didn't bring him happiness, he admitted that he turned to alcohol and illicit substances for help. But that was nothing compared to the revelation that his co-star was caught grooming young fans. In July of 2021, Drake Bell pled guilty to attempted endangering of children and disseminating harmful materials to juveniles after a young woman came forward and accused him of predatory behavior. The 19-year-old, who chose to remain anonymous, claimed that he began talking to her when she was 12. The actor managed to get away with 2 years on probation and 200 hours of community service. But at 36 years old, Drake Bell's reputation is now irreparably tarnished.
First up on our list today is Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando is considered to be one of the most handsome Hollywood stars to grace the silver screen. He is also known for being an extremely talented actor who led a bit of a rough and tumble life. But what you may not know is that his ladies' man attitude resulted in various affairs and marriages, and well, 8 kids, with the actor adopting 3 additional kids on top of that. And sadly, some of these children would have extremely unhappy lives. In 1990, one of Marlon Brando's sons, Christian, his sister Sheehan's boyfriend. Apparently, he had suspected that Sheehan's boyfriend was harming her physically, and so Christian ended up taking his life when the altercation escalated. He was charged with manslaughter and served 6 years in prison. Sadly, that wasn't the only horror that the Brando children would go through, as only 5 years later, Sheehan tragically ended up taking her own life after a diagnosis with schizophrenia and a steady mental decline. Next on the list is Liv Tyler. We all know her as the stunning half-elf woman in Lord of the Rings. She's also known as the daughter of Steven Tyler, the eccentric frontman of Aerosmith. However, that wasn't always the case. Liv Tyler was originally born as Liv Rundgren, and she believed that the famous musician and music producer Todd Rundgren was her father. However, a chance encounter as an 8-year-old with Steven Tyler started to unravel Liv's true parentage. During the meeting, Steven pointed out the eerie similarities between his own daughter and Liv, which led to her mother finally confessing the secret. Liv wasn't related to Todd at all, and in fact, her mother had kept the secret to protect her daughter because Steven was going through some serious substance issues at the time of their brief relationship. Liv eventually changed her last name to Tyler, but kept Rundgren as her middle name in homage to the man who raised her as his own at some point. Damn, I wish I had 2 rock star dads. Next up is MMA legend Ronda Rousey. She's got a spectacular record, and it's impossible to penetrate her amazing fighting legacy as she has cemented herself as one of the greats. Her personal life though, well, a little touchier. In fact, Ronda has a history of aggression in her past relationships, having violently harmed an ex-boyfriend. She is also a conspiracy theorist who has some extremely harmful opinions. She shared on her Twitter that she believes that the horrifying Sandy Hook incident was actually a manufactured incident and that the people and children involved were actually actors. I can't think of anything more harmful and disgusting than promoting that the real-life harm of was done to take away guns from Americans. Ronda shared the video and described it as, quote, extremely interesting and a must-watch documentary. Eventually, after obvious backlash, Ronda deleted the video and her manager attempted to scrub any trace of it from the internet, which obviously didn't happen because it is in fact the internet. Next up is Frank Sinatra. The smooth-singing romantic who charmed his audiences into the Hall of Greats has a seriously dark secret personal life. In fact, every move Frank Sinatra made was meticulously tracked by the FBI for 40 years in pages and pages of files. Why, you may ask? Well, outside of being held in suspicion for dodging the draft because of a supposed ear infection, he is also thought to have strong mafia ties. He's been seen in cahoots with a revolving cast of characters connected to the criminal underworld, including Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana, with whom he was close friends. Apparently, the FBI was so closely tracking Sinatra because he had introduced Sam to John F. Kennedy's campaign for presidency in an attempt to deliver Union votes. Dodging the draft and electing John F. Kennedy, Sinatra is a man after my own heart. Next up is the actor who portrayed Spider-Man in the original Spider-Man movies, you know, the ones with the PlayStation font. Well, Tobey Maguire has had an insane childhood that was largely hidden from the public when he became an A-lister. He came from a very financially strained family. His parents adopted several of his cousins after his aunt passed away suddenly, and the weight of now caring for all these kids left them destitute and broke. In a desperate attempt to provide for all these children, Toby's dad attempted to rob a bank. His attempt was unsuccessful, and his father had to spend some time in prison for his crime. Thankfully though, he was released after a few years because it was his first time offending, and the judge sympathized with his cause. Luckily for them, they made it out of the ordeal, and now Toby is an internationally recognized celebrity.
In at 5, Carl was dead. Up is a heartwarming yet devastating film that had audiences in tears within the first 10 minutes. After the loss of his wife, Carl attaches balloons to his house and sets off on an incredible adventure, dealing with his grief along the way. Now the theory goes that Carl's adventure was actually a journey into the afterlife after passing away in his sleep. The evidence? A house rising up to the sky, a Boy Scout who seems more like a guardian angel, a talking dog who wants to eat squirrels, a villain who wants to stop the pair with the help of hellhounds. Yes, it's sad, but it's comforting to know that Carl was actually reuniting with his wife. I don't know though, what do you guys think? I'm not sure I believe that one. Coming in at number 4, Andy's mum. Andy's mum, aptly named Andy's mum, may actually be the real villain of the Toy Story films. Well, kinda. Hear me out. The theory goes that Andy's mum was the original owner of Jessie, the rootin' tootin' cowgirl. If you remember in Jessie's flashback of how she ended up discarded, her owner Emily had given her away after getting older, no longer wanting to play with her. With this information, many have been quick to assume that Andy's mum was Emily. I mean, we have never learned her name, so it could very well be a possibility. Not only that, but in the original Toy Story, Andy wears a human-sized Jessie hat, prior to Jessie even appearing in Toy Story 2. We can only assume it was his mum's. Also in the same Jessie flashback, you can see the human-sized hat on Emily's bed. I mean, case in point, theory confirmed. Coming in at 3, Gaston. Now this theory is just plain tragic. The theory goes that if you look closely at the beginning of Beauty and the Beast, you will see a familiar looking doe near the stream, which many people have been quick to point out looks a whole lot like Bambi's mother. As we know, Bambi's mother was shot, and many fans have theorized that Gaston was the hunter who shot her. I mean, we never did get to see the killer, and we know that a lot of our favorite Disney films exist in the same universe. Still don't believe me? Well, why don't you take a look at the decapitated head that hangs on the tavern wall in Beauty and the Beast. Look familiar? Coming in at 2, Boo. As you can imagine, Boo was never the same after Sully walked out on her during Monsters Inc. I mean, how could she be? A poor impressionable girl abandoned. Now this theory goes that Boo had a mental breakdown as a result of the abandonment, and then learned how to time travel. Because why not? The theory goes on to explain that during her time traveling around Monstropolis with Mike and Sully, Boo picked up a few tricks and discovered more about the workings of the magical doors. With her newfound knowledge, she ended up traversing space and time, winding up in the world of Brave, transforming herself into the witch we see in the film. I mean, just take a look at the witch's workshop and you'll see what I mean. The signs are all there. And finally, in at number 1, Nemo is dead. Sad. Finding Nemo is a touching tale of a father and son and the lengths any parent will go in order to protect and save their children. However, what if I were to tell you that Nemo was dead the entire time, and that Marlin was actually hallucinating most of the events that unfolded in Finding Nemo? This theory insists that Nemo actually died during the same attack that killed his mother and siblings, and that the rest of the film follows Marlin attempting to cope with the tragedy of losing everyone you love. And if you don't believe me, there is legitimate evidence to support this theory. Marlin's journey is essentially an allegory for the 5 stages of grief. Denial occurs when Marlin doesn't want Nemo to go to school because he isn't ready. Anger occurs when Marlin yells at Nemo for swimming out too far. Bargaining when he meets Dory, the shark, and the turtles in order to find Nemo. Depression occurs when he watches Nemo get flushed down the toilet. And acceptance when Marlin finally learns to let go of the past and changes his ways. And on top of that, did you guys know that Nemo is actually Latin for nothing? So, there you go.
But this isn't a story about a famous musician. This is a story about a guy growing up.
Shawn Mendes first garnered attention online back in 2013 when he began posting song covers using Vine. The following year, his popularity and talent had caught the attention of artist manager Andrew Gertler and Island Records A&R Ziggy Keratin. This led to him signing a deal with the record label, and since joining them he has released 3 studio albums and headlined 3 world tours. All 3 of his albums debuted atop the US Billboard 200, with his first making Mendes one of 5 artists to ever debut at #1 before the age of 18. His 3rd release made him the 3rd youngest artist to achieve 3 #1 albums. The rise of Shawn Mendes was similar to that of Justin Bieber, although instead of blowing up on YouTube with his covers, Shawn learned how to actually play guitar by watching YouTube tutorials at the age of 14. Less than a year later, he began posting his covers. Funny enough, one of his first covers was actually from Justin Bieber's As Long As You Love Me. So with all of these events seemingly happening in such short order and his fame skyrocketing so quickly, it's no wonder that Shawn's new documentary is focusing on how this has affected him mentally and emotionally. The truth is, a touring schedule of that magnitude can wear down the best of them. For Shawn though, he still felt like he had a lot to prove, and so night after night, regardless of his own issues, he continued to perform. Although with all the examples we have of artists burning out from tough touring schedules, Shawn seems to be taking his mental health more seriously. Back in 2018, he did an interview about anxiety, and even in his lyrics at the time, you can tell that he was really going through it. For example, his song titled In My Blood is filled with lyrics that refer to the feeling of being anxious. His opening verse following the intro is really telling and clearly shows that he was going through a rough patch in his mental state. In the song he says, "Laying on the bathroom floor, feeling nothing, I'm overwhelmed and insecure, give me something. I could take to ease my mind slowly, just have a drink and you'll feel better, just take her home and you'll feel better, keep telling me that it gets better, does it ever?" That right there is a beautiful piece of poetry that describes his inner struggles to be his very best but still not feeling better. The impressive thing with insightful lines like that is the fact that Shawn was only 19 years old when he wrote it. Plus he explained during the interview that 15-year-old him could have really used that song. It's a song that specifically explores his first experience when dealing with anxiety. It was meant to allude to that feeling of being on the verge of giving up and then deciding not to. The ultimate struggle for Shawn though is finding a balance between dance-worthy songs that the studio wants and being vulnerable on sadder songs that talk about inner struggles despite happy times. That in my opinion is what connects artists best with their fans. We want to see them do well, but we also want to know that they're human and going through similar struggles. A big focus of his new Netflix documentary will be about a story of a guy growing up rather than the life of a pop star. In the trailer and from what I've read thus far, Shawn seems to be a very genuine person who cared more about the music than ever being famous. During a trip home to Canada, the singer hangs out with his sister in the documentary, and she tells the camera crew that when Shawn started singing, he wasn't really the greatest, even adding how annoyed she was at the constant noise in the house. She remembered asking him if he wanted to be famous one day, and in response, Shawn shut the whole idea down. He seemed almost disgusted by it and said that being famous seemed awful. Turns out even back then, he knew his dream coming true would mean a price would have to be paid. As his voice began to strain in the middle of his 105-show tour, he reflected on the busy schedule in the documentary and said that while he was grateful, he just really wanted to hang out with his parents and watch some movies. Towards the end of the documentary, Shawn reassured fans though that he doesn't plan on stopping anytime soon. He went on to say that for the next 10 years, everything he does is going to be at full speed. In Wonder starring Shawn Mendes will premiere on Netflix on November 23rd, 2020.